The Lifestyle Show, presented by Selina MacKenzie.
We are going to be talking about Leonard Cohen now. The book is called The Man Who Saw the Angels Fall. To tell us more, welcome to the show, Christophe Lebold.
Hello.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. Now, I have to say, I don't know a great deal about Leonard Cohen. Is this his full biography?
Yes, it is, actually. It's a full biography from birth to, well, sadly, to death, I have to say.
Yeah, he died, I believe, in 2016.
2016, age 82, after a 50-year career.
And am I right in thinking it was after a fall that he died?
It is true. The official report was, he was in bad health, and apparently he was in his apartment, and he had fallen, and he was writing emails with a friend, and sadly passed away while doing those emails, but fell asleep. Went back to bed and fell asleep.
Okay. So tell us about the young Leonard Cohen. How did he get into music?
The young Leonard Cohen got into music probably age 3 or 4 in the synagogue. He was entranced when people raised the Torah and sang the hymns. He was in love with the liturgy, and he had a mother who was of Russian descent. Actually, she was from Lithuania. She was an immigrant from Lithuania, and she was singing Russian songs, Russian folk songs at home. So he was always brought up with music, and he became a musician before he became a writer. He had a country and western band in the late 1940s. Then he was a poet and a novelist for a few years, but he always carried a guitar with him. And he used to say that his whole work had a guitar behind it, including the novels. And it's when he realized after 10 years of being a writer that he could not exactly live the way he wanted to live, that he decided to, following in the footsteps of Bob Dylan and the folk revival movement, he decided to record an album of songs, and he stopped in New York at the end of 1966, and he had written songs like Suzanne and songs like Stranger Song and songs like So Long Marianne while he was living in Greece, and he recorded them in New York for Columbia. And that first album, well, it made him a star almost overnight, especially in Europe.
It sounds like he was very artistic, being a poet as well and a novelist.
Oh, he was art itself. It probably had to do with the fact that, his father died when he was 9, and he had to, fill in that void, and he had to communicate with his father and communicate with the past. And he said that the first poem he ever wrote was a poem that he wrote at the age of 9, the day his father died, and this was fateful, he believed. And but he was also a very good performer, had a great sense of how to conduct a concert and how to take an audience exactly where he wanted to take them. He had studied hypnotism as a young man.
Wow, crikey. You mentioned the synagogue. I read that he wanted to be all Jewish heroes at once.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I say in my book. Being Jewish and of a practicing family, his imagination, his poetic imagination was filled with Jewish references and Jewish mysticism. And his great model, one of his great models was King David. The listener may remember that King David in the Old Testament was the king of Israel, but he was also the person who wrote 150 prayers, which were songs, which were used in the liturgy in the synagogue. So he's like the lyrical model of Leonard Cohen, the person who loved God so much that he wrote 150 prayers to him. But King David was also, the Bible says, a chronic womanizer. So King David was a hero. Another hero was Jacob. Jacob was this man in the Bible who fought with angels, and Leonard Cohen fought with the bad angels the dark angels of depression his whole life. He was also Abraham. Abraham is the eternal pilgrim, the person who is never at home and has to cross the world. But, to a certain extent, he was also Lenny Bruce, and Woody Allen, who shows us, the comedy behind the tragedy of life. So, yes, certainly he was all Jewish heroes at once. He was a very romantic character and had this image of himself as a Cohen, first and foremost. Cohen, his family name is a name that in Hebrew means priest. So he had a spiritual mission inscribed in his name, and the spiritual mission was to reconnect people to God and to reconnect God to the community and to reconnect people to their hearts. And this is just something that he tried to refashion in rock and roll. He reinvented the high priest of the Temple of Jerusalem in rock and roll style as an existentialist troubadour at the beginning of his career, and then as this ironic crooner who tells us that our heart cooks and sizzles like shish kebab in our breasts.
Oh, I like that saying. That's a good one. Like I say, yeah, it's a great one, that is. Yeah, like I say, I can only form an opinion on what very little I know about his music, and I've only heard a couple of his songs, Hallelujah being one of them, which is brilliant. But he did seem, because you mentioned his depression, he did seem like a troubled man, which seemed to come out in his music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, sadly, I don't know, because, I think part of his creative impulse, came from depression. So it turned out for the best, because, now we have those 130 songs, but sadly for him, he inherited, depressive condition from his father and mother.
Right.
Both of which had depression, especially his mother. His mother was, clinically depressed for a large part of of her adult life, and she had to be hospitalized. Except that, and he started, feeling this in his late teenage years, and most of his adult life, he was a functional depressive. That is to say, he could carry on his life, carrying on his job and be functional in his relationships, and sometimes it was completely dysfunctional. So he tried to cure that depression with lots of coping strategies, the usual strategies: multiplying girlfriends, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, trying every religion in sight. And, he tried every religion, mystical Judaism, Scientology, Zen Buddhism, Catholicism, Sufi, existentialism, all the philosophies and all the religions. But probably what really worked for him is writing.
Yeah.
And he considered writing as a form of alchemy, right? As a spiritual activity, actually. You take what is dark inside you, melancholy, depression, the presence of death inside you, because he had this, because of the death of his father, probably, but also because of a personal sensitivity that he had this very precise sensitivity that we are not here forever. And death is not just something that happens to you at the end of your life, but it's a companion that is with you your whole life. So you take all of this, everything that's dark, everything that's heavy, and you turn it into things that are light and things that are luminous, right? And that's what alchemists do, right? They turn base matter into gold, and he used the alchemy of language. He used the alchemy of poetry to turn his dark thoughts and his dark feelings into lovely 3-minute waltzes into lovely 3-minute depressions about, people waiting for salvation in hotel rooms, about people becoming angels for each other, about women falling in love with fire, about people stepping into avalanches. Those beautiful little poetic moments, usually with very beautiful waltz melodies. And those songs were a way for him to express himself and to explore the dark side, but they were also, he considered them spiritual weapons that cure our soul and that help us cross the night, that help us go through our own depression, our own defeat, our own fall.
Yeah, very, very deep man. And you mentioned his parents. Did he have his own family, although he was a bit of a womanizer? Did he get married and have children?
He never actually got married. He never signed the papers, but he lived a marital life several times. He had he was famously a ladies' man, and it's a reputation that he cultivated. And at the same time that he himself found it problematic, and in his work he kept deconstructing his own image as a ladies' man. But in spite of that, he had long-standing relationship with several women. In the 1960s, he was with a Norwegian woman when he was living in Greece. She was called Marianne, and he wrote famous songs for her, including the famous song Marianne. And then in the late 1960s, he met a woman called Suzanne, who is not the Suzanne of the songs, completely different woman, and he had 2 children with her. But they had apparently a very rocky and whatever you want relationship, a very a very stormy relationship, let's say. But he stayed more or less 10 years with her. And in the 1980s, he was with a French photographer that he loved very much and who remained his friend the rest of his life, although they were no longer romantically involved, and she was called Dominique Serman. And he had a few other women in his life that he stayed several years with. But he has 2 children, a boy and a girl. The boy is called Adam and is a great singer-songwriter in his own right, living in Los Angeles and Montreal.
Yeah, because Leonard Cohen was actually Canadian, wasn't he? Not American.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Born in Montreal. He was a Jewish Canadian and was very proud to be so. Although, he spent a great deal of his time in America in the last 30 years of his life. He had a house in Los Angeles and a house in Montreal.
Yeah. Well, 82 is a good age, and there's obviously much, much more about Leonard Cohen in the book, which is called why is it called The Man Who Saw the Angels Fall?
It's called The Man Who Saw the Angels Fall. To make a long story short, it's because I believe that Leonard Cohen sees through our cover story, right? Our cover story is that we have a handle on life and we know what we're doing. And he's basically saying, no, we are falling. No matter what our achievements are, no matter what level of achievement we have reached, at a certain level, we are falling, and at a certain level, our hearts are broken. At a certain level, our society is broken and God is broken and everything is broken. So he sees men fall, but he also knows that when we recognize that we're falling and when we recognize that our heart is broken, we can open up to love. And then when we open up to love, we can be angels for each other. So we can become angels, that is to say, messengers of light and messengers of love. And this is why the book is called The Man Who Saw the Angels Fall. It's because he teaches us that we are falling, but we can be angels for each other.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, that's the title of the book. The author is Christophe Lebold, who we're chatting to now. And I want to say thank you very much, Christophe, for joining us today and explaining a little more. I'm a bit more knowledgeable now about Leonard Cohen.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm sure you will like him. I recommend 2 songs everybody knows, right? Wonderful song. And Going Home. Incredible song where, he speaks in the voice of God and God speaks about Leonard Cohen.
I'm making a note now, and I also want to say that that the book is available at luath.co.uk and is also available on the website Bookshop. Thank you very much, Christophe.
Available in every bookstore.
Great to chat to you. You have a good day. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.